Sasha came home late in the evening. The streets were empty. Only occasional streetlights reflected on the wet asphalt. The door to his apartment opened easily, but inside, the room felt strangely empty. On the table, he noticed an open notebook that hadn't been there in the morning. The page was covered in neat, almost childlike handwriting. "I know you're here." Sasha's heart froze. Sasha took a deep breath and sat at the table. He picked up the notebook, trying not to shake. On the second page were more words, this time longer. "You shouldn't have come back alone." Suddenly, a faint creak echoed through the apartment, as if someone was cautiously walking across the parquet in another room. Sasha listened, but an inner voice whispered, "Don't go there." Yet curiosity overcame fear, and he slowly moved toward the bedroom door. Sasha slowly opened the bedroom door. The room was darker than the others, and the only light came from the window, falling onto the bed. On the pillow lay a small, neatly folded piece of paper. He unfolded it and read, "I see everything you think." A chill ran down his spine. His breathing became uneven. He looked around the room, but it was empty. Only a faint shadow hung near the ceiling above the wardrobe. It vanished when he blinked. Sasha went through the entire apartment. The windows were locked, the doors closed, no signs of forced entry. Yet the feeling of unease didn't disappear, as if someone was still nearby, invisible. He approached the front door when he noticed a thin line of dust on the floor that hadn't been there before. The line led from the door to the living room and suddenly stopped at the table. Sasha crouched down and saw small, wet fingerprints on the floor leading toward the notebook. Sasha sat at the table and opened the notebook again. The pages were filled with strange notes, increasingly frantic. "I see you. You must not touch this. They are close." Suddenly, he noticed that some letters on the page were highlighted. His heart raced. He realized it was a warning. Another glance at the page revealed a small, doodle-like figure, almost like a shadow, standing by his chair. Sasha began carefully searching the apartment, following the strange hints from the notebook. He looked behind paintings, inside closets, even under the rug. In the kitchen, on the top shelf, he found another small piece of paper. It had words written in crooked, almost childlike handwriting. "Don't look at me directly." Sasha felt a cold sweat on his forehead. He quickly scanned the room and noticed that his reflection in the kitchen stove didn't match his movements. Sasha took out his phone and turned on the camera. He aimed it at the stove and started recording. In the reflection, his movements didn't match what the screen showed. A shadow behind him moved on its own, swaying slightly, like a paper figure. His heart pounded, but he couldn't look away. Suddenly, the shadow moved closer and seemed to touch the camera. On the screen, a message appeared, written by the light of the reflection. "You're next." Sasha tried to run into another room, but the shadow mirrored every move he made. When he stepped, it stepped. When he turned, it mirrored his gaze. Panic gripped him completely. He noticed that the shadow had grown larger, taking on almost human-like shapes. Sasha realized that every movement he made was directly controlling this entity, and with each passing second, it became more aggressive, closing in on him. Sasha noticed a large mirror in the hallway. He yanked it from its place, almost losing his balance, and positioned it so that it reflected the shadow slowly approaching him. His heart pounded, his hands shook, but he took a cautious step back, directing the shadow straight into the reflection. Suddenly, it slammed against the glass and seemed to compress, as if being sucked into the mirror itself. A whispering sound filled the room. "You're not free yet." Sasha froze in front of the mirror. The shadow inside slowly took on the outline of a face, familiar yet distorted. A quiet, icy voice echoed in Sasha's mind. "Do you want to be free? I can release you, but at a price." Sasha sensed something dangerous hanging in the air. "What price?" he whispered, his voice trembling. "What is precious to you?" "A memory, a part of your life," the shadow replied. Sasha took a sharp breath and said, "If you need a memory, take this old photo. It's not my real life." He grabbed the frame from the table and held it in front of the mirror. The shadow froze as if listening. For a moment, everything was silent. Then the shadow slowly touched the photo and the light in the room dimmed. For a few seconds, Sasha saw a scene from his childhood inside the mirror. Distorted, alien. The shadow withdrew into the glass, leaving only a faint tremor on its surface. Sasha barely managed to step back as the surface of the mirror rippled, as if a wave had passed through water. The shadow broke free, now no longer just a reflection, but almost a tangible form. It moved quickly, perfectly mirroring every movement of Sasha, but now it was free from the mirror. Sasha's heart pounded in his chest, panic overwhelming him. He realized the trick had only angered him. The shadow laughed into the air. "You cannot escape me." Sasha grabbed a kitchen knife and, trembling, stepped toward the shadow. It moved so fast that it almost blended with the air, but every time he swung, the shadow seemed to stretch, avoiding the blade. He remembered every exercise from childhood horror movies. A sharp strike, a sudden breath, precise aim. Sasha swung again, and for a moment it seemed the knife touched the edge of it. At that instant, the shadow let out a faint screech, and the air in the room grew colder, as if an icy wind had passed through his body. Sasha swung sharply, but the moment the blade touched the shadow, it seemed to merge into the metal of the knife. The blade vibrated, and a chill ran through Sasha's hand, as if the shadow inside had come alive. It began to pull his hand toward itself, wrapping it with invisible tendrils, and Sasha felt his strength draining away. Panic consumed him completely. The knife was no longer a tool of defense, but a lever of the shadow's power. "You're still trying to control me?" A cold, commanding voice echoed in Sasha's mind. Sasha froze, feeling the shadow pulling his hand with the knife. He took a deep breath and, despite the fear, spoke. "Enough. I'm not afraid of you." Sasha's voice trembled, but he tried to be firm. For a moment the shadow froze, and then its face appeared in the air before him, distorted, almost human. "You can speak, but you cannot fool me," the shadow whispered. Sasha stepped closer and said, "I don't want to fight. I want to understand." "What do you want?"